Greetings and welcome back to the Shift Briefing series. I'm David Pearson. In this video, I want to talk about de-escalation, a couple of its applications, and finish up by talking about the concept of energy and how it applies. Let's get started. I've wanted to do a video about de-escalation for a while. I look at de-escalation having three main parts. The first is, and we're going to talk about this in the video, de-escalation out on the call, out on the street. The part that I also think we need to talk about, although we don't have time in this video, is the de-escalation of conflict inside of the building. We oftentimes have those interactions that are challenging inside of our workplace, and we're just not sure what to do with that. The last piece about de-escalation is the de-escalation of oneself, and I want to touch on that at the end of the video. When we look at de-escalation out on the street, I've had a difficult time really wrapping my mind around it. It's not that I don't like the concept, I do, but I oftentimes think we have it in a silo by itself or in a vacuum. To me, de-escalation has to be in play with other concepts, like the safety priorities, less lethal, opportunity, jeopardy, failures, space and time, and the 4 C's. To me, it's a much bigger issue and there is more at play. So when we start looking at de-escalation out on the street, I want to give you a couple of things. First is, I've seen a number of videos where officers are trying to, in very difficult circumstances, de-escalate a situation where somebody is armed and they're walking through a community. Now, the problem is that at some point in a couple of these videos, they take hostages. In one case, when they're trying to resolve that, not only do they kill the hostage taker, but they kill the hostage. And again, these are very difficult situations. So I think sometimes we are stressing de-escalation for the suspect without truly having appreciation for other concepts. Let me give you a hypothetical, and we've all seen this, we've seen the videos of a hostage taker standing out with somebody that they're holding at gunpoint. We've seen videos where in order to save the hostage, we shoot and kill the hostage taker. So using the safety priorities, we de-escalated that situation by using lethal force for the benefit of the hostage. And when we look at these other calls, sometimes it's more difficult for us to take that concept and apply it to somebody that's walking through a neighborhood or standing out in the open and protecting other people. So here's another situation, and we'll see how we work through this. You get a call of a person that's got a knife. We'll just say they're suicidal. They're standing out in an open area, and very close to them are a couple of innocent civilians. When you get on scene and you get out of your car, you see that in between you and this subject are these two innocent civilians. Now, de-escalation training will tell you, hey, don't create a confrontation, don't press up and create jeopardy where you have to use deadly force, use good verbal skills. The problem is that if you stand still, you've flipped the safety priorities. You've given more credence to the subject carrying the knife than you did to the innocent civilians. So what's the right thing to do? Well, in my mind, it's to get between the innocent civilians and that person that's carrying the knife. Now, while I move up, I might be saying something to the innocent civilians about moving back. Hopefully I can get them out of the way. I might even make a comment to the person that's holding the knife and say, hey, look, I'm not coming for you. I just want to make sure that I can get these people out of the way. Once they're back, you and I can chat. And then once we get in between those two people, in between the innocent civilians and the person with the knife, now we can start de-escalating for their benefit. We can use good verbal skills, CIT training. Maybe we have a co-responder that we can contact that can give us some information about, themes to use or things to say to help de-escalate the situation. But until the innocent civilians are out of the way, it's their de-escalation that I have to worry about. Now, as I move up, If I feel like the person's moving closer to the innocent civilians, I might have to take action. I might have to use lethal force. And I should be able to articulate why I did, not because of him, but because of the two innocent civilians. If somebody says, well, Dave, as you moved up and they started getting out of the way, you created your own jeopardy, I would disagree. My movements were based on the safety priorities and protecting the two innocent civilians. Hopefully I can get them out of the way and now turn my attention to the person with the knife. You can see that de-escalation can be a very difficult concept. I mean, in these videos, you just don't want an officer to walk up and shoot somebody that's walking through the neighborhood. But at some point, once you let them get a hostage, that's too late also in my mind. So there's this balancing act. And that's the conversation that I think you guys need to have in your organization about at what point, with a person walking either with a gun or a knife through a neighborhood, do you feel like you have the ability to use force? Now, de-escalation might look at like using some sort of less lethal, but at some point it might look like you taking a lethal shot in order to de-escalate the potential for those innocent civilians that are around. The next thing that I want to talk about is the de-escalation of oneself. This is a very important concept to me because both personally and professionally, I've paid for my inability to de-escalate myself in one way or the other. And I was out in New Hampshire, and I was talking to some guys, and they were talking about, man, I hope you talk about this because we know several guys that once they get amped up, they never can come down. And so they know people, I know people, I used to be one of those people. Hopefully I've learned a little bit. So learning how to de-escalate oneself is important. One of the first steps that I've found helpful is figuring out what my trigger is. What's setting me off that starts me up that ramp that I can't come down? And I know it now because I've thought about it, I've done a lot of self-reflection. I can feel myself doing that. So I know that I have to take some immediate action. The last thing that I want to talk about is this concept of energy. And the reason it's important is because it allows us to either handle stressful events or it doesn't. And so it looks like this. I want you to imagine that you're fully rested, no stress, and you're ready to take on the world. When you get up, you're like, all right, let's go. If you look at your energy at 100% level, I want you to look at that like a 50-gallon drum of water, all right? And then there are days that you go into work and you have no energy at all, like you have no sleep, you've been working a lot of overtime, you're fighting with your significant other or whatever. And sometimes you walk into work with a shot glass of energy. When you're in that mode, when you have that little energy, often there is no buffer between some sort of stimulus and your response. And usually where your response is not very good. I know mine hasn't been. So finding ways, and again, I might try to do a video on energy later, but finding ways of keeping your energy, of not wasting it on, things that you can't fix, politics inside of the office, some sort of conflict that you're having with somebody else. Protect that energy. That energy will give you that buffer between that stimulus and the response. And if you can think about that both in relationships and also out on the street. The other part about energy is just finding healthy ways to replenish your energy so that the next day you come to work, you've got a little bit more. Remember, not only do we want to save the energy for work, but we want to have something to take home with us for our friends, our spouse, and for ourselves. That leads me into this whole new closing that I have. I'm now saying be smart, be safe, and be efficient. And then what I mean by that is people go, well, don't you want us to be safe first? And I say, no, I really want you to be smart because those people that lack smart aren't very safe. They don't know how to be safe. So I want you to be smart about what you do. And then I want you to be safe. I want you to take reasonable risks and use good tactics with the understanding of the safety priorities as our decision-making tool. And lastly, I want you to be efficient. Find ways to save that energy, replenish that energy so you're not wasting it on things that you don't have to. With that in mind, take care.